Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place.
Hi.
Right away, you start off bad. No, I'm teasing. You didn't start off bad. But it is funny to me when you don't know how the computer works. Like you're Ken, your job is computer.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
You're Ken.
The thing is, I know how the computer works at a level that is of no use in everyday life, other than they're very friendly to me.
They are. I mean, oftentimes I call you over to fix something because your proximity to the computer appears to fix the things. That's offensive.
It's been like that for 30 years.
That's because you're about 1,000 years old.
Yeah, it's only been like that for 30 years.
We have a fantastic guest today.
Oh, so good.
So good. Let's talk about everything. So we have Rachel Wright today, the magnificent Rachel Wright. So we're going to talk about everything because when I talk to Rachel, we talk about everything.
And once we started talking, we kept talking.
Right. So we were talking about like all the stuff. For one thing, Rachel is one of the few people I know who lives her whole who works as a therapist and also like lives her life pretty publicly as a polyamorous person. I do that. And it's not that common. So that was pretty cool just to talk about that.
She's just out there being a whole person with all her.
Right. Which also reminds me how valuable it is to me for any of us to show up transparently. Yes. You know, you and I have the privilege, or we have been exercising the privilege of being out, right? We are out about our orientations, respective orientations, about our relationship structure, but we're also out quite a lot about our politics, about our religious belief. We are out. We are pretty vocal. And I feel the privilege in that. And I also feel this camaraderie, this compassion for other people who are doing that because it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard it comes at a cost in this culture of often black and white thinking, black and white buckets to be in.
Yeah, literally, with all the racism in this country.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's important though to talk about transparency and non-monogamy because somebody recently said that I was a cautionary tale. And I agree that so what they were talking about is that when I came out as non-monogamous, I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of really people who I thought were really good friends. I thought they were people who had attended the births of my children, people who were legally like my children's guardians and and I lost them. And that's true. And so, I was sharing part of this story because they were talking about the fact that they are socially monogamous. In other words, they present to the world a picture of monogamy, but behind the scenes, they practice non-monogamy. And this is a lot of people this is a lot of people I date. This is a lot of people I work with. And I'm not here to tell you should be out. This isn't about should, but there's something about this. So when I was told I was a cautionary tale because I'd lost friends, what that brought up for me was all these feelings of that's only true. One, because other people acted, really shitty. That's the bottom line. There was no reason for other people to ostracize my children from their events because I was polyamorous. There was no reason we couldn't have had reasonable conversations about what was going on. And that's not the path that they chose. And no amount of my hiding was going to make them better people.
Right.
So I could have hid this. So because the flip side of this, if my story is a cautionary tale, then the flip side of this is you should hide so that other people don't have to be uncomfortable by the reality of your life, or so that other people don't have to confront the moral strictures we put on relationships. No. So I'm not for that. And if you're making that choice, you get to, and there are real ramifications. It is true that you could be facing discrimination. You could be facing challenges in custody battles. There are a million reasons why you might want to be not out about your non-monogamy. And I don't want to tell you that you shouldn't, but I also don't want to pretend like it's nobody's right to get to mistreat you when you do come out. And the more of us who are in a position to emotionally caretake for ourselves and each other, well, the more of us who come out, the more reasonable it will be to be out about this. So we've stated the numbers before, and these numbers are underreported. Of course they are, because this is a marginalized population. So these numbers are underreported. 5% of people in North America are practicing non-monogamy, and 20% have tried it at some point. So look around your town and think about what that means for the numbers around you. We were just at Tanglewood. We were at Tanglewood seeing John Legend, and we were there, and they said they sold 18,000 tickets. So how many people in that crowd would that translate to?
5% of 18,000 is 800.
That is not a small number of people.
Yep.
Sitting out there in that audience. Some of them swingers, some of them.
No, I'm sorry, 900. It's 900.
Okay, so that's like not
almost 1,000 people in that.
Right. Statistically
speaking.
Also, that was a privileged, liberal state living, crowd in general, right?
Going to see John. There's a whole bunch of qualifiers for that group.
See John Legend. So also going to listen to some seriously monogamous romantic music.
True.
So, maybe that's unbalanced. But my point is that the more of us who have the privilege to be out and who can, the easier it will be for all of us to just be honest about our relationship structures. And so that's worth it for me.
Lovely to have had a conversation with someone in that position, holding that role in in the world.
And Rachel's just brilliant. So let's get into it. Let's just introduce the lovely Rachel.
Yeah.
Rachel Wright is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's a distinguished psychotherapist. She's renowned. She's an expert in modern relationships, mental health, sex. Her mission is to help people live happier, healthier lives by providing insights and practical advice in a relatable, engaging way, which you are just about to hear, because Rachel is relatable and Rachel is engaging.
Yep.
Her message has resonated with audiences on stages across the globe, as well as on her podcast, The Wright Conversations. WRIGHT. Yeah, come on, that's great. The Wright Conversations is a podcast about sex, relationships, and mental health. Rachel's also been featured in numerous media outlets, including New York Times, Women's Health, Cosmopolitan, NBC News Radio, and more. This is a great conversation. Just settle in. It's like the chat you didn't know you needed to listen to. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us on Playing with Fire.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you because you and I have spoken before. And when I was on your podcast, the conversation turned into one of those like, oh, we could talk about all the things. All the things. So I was excited to have you here so we can just pick up and keep talking about all the things.
I love it. Those are my favorite podcast. I mean, this may sound obvious, but like when there's a rapport on and off air, quote unquote, and you can just talk, I think that, and that's part of why I named my podcast The Wright Conversations, is because like I think that conversations are so much more interesting to listen in on versus just this kind of like talk show interview, like media tour type style interview.
People like relationships. They don't know that all the time, but they do. They're attracted.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
I didn't know
for many years. Ken tried to opt out of the idea of being a human for like he was trying to go full Spock. So you know,
how'd the beginning of our relationship go?
Oh, that did not work very well.
It's to be a human in relationship with humans.
And to convert him back to full human status.
Yeah.
It was effort.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
It's hard to do sometimes, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, I mean, you are deep in people's relationships and doing relational work all the time. I think that there's a time and a place for the investment relationship where you're like, yep, this isn't quite right now.
Yeah.
And put in the effort. And I like, that's where we started.
Investment relationship. Yep.
It was an investment. On spec. He was like a demo and rebuild project, I joke. But so was I. It's just that
we both
his
were.
was visible.
It's true. Yep.
His was very visible.
Yeah. Some of us are more forward presenting with our renovation needs.
And I'm stealthy. I'm stealthy. Like I have a nice facade.
Yeah. Same, actually. Same, exactly. It's like, oh, look at this put together therapist that communicates so well and like knows so much. And then get in a relationship with me in a few months in, you're like, oh, she's just a human. Okay.
Darn it. Aren't we just humans? That's true. Yeah. The people I'm dating are going to hear this and I feel like I'm going to get some texts afterwards. I feel like that's true. The thing is though, what I love about you is that you are a real person across every platform I see you on. And
thank you.
I appreciate that so much because I think it is an under explored opportunity on the part of therapists, especially, but really anybody working in the space of relationships is, can you be a whole person while also maintaining a sense of privacy where you want it and navigating that because you have multiple relationships. You have to navigate other people's privacy needs. So if you're game, I would love to talk about what that's like for you and how it's been going for you to be a real whole human.
Well, let me tell you. No, first of all, I really appreciate that. That reflection means a lot because I try very, very hard to be that. And so just to hear that is coming across and landing, especially on a digital platform or multiple platforms is really wonderful. So thank you. It's easy sometimes and really, really hard other times. As a therapist in school, there is so much talk around this idea of being a blank slate and not self-disclosing unless it is like incredibly clinically relevant. And what I think is missing from that lesson is the caveat is it's not good to do that in a session with a client. Right? Like that's their space. That is their container. And sure, when it is appropriate, I will self-disclose. But the and that isn't discussed is like, and you can be a full person outside of that container. Right. And that might not be for everybody. And that's okay. There are clients that walk through my door. I mean, I'm all virtual. So like my virtual door. That are really, really, really happy to know that I'm a human who has dealt with depression, that I'm a human who has navigated panic disorder, that I'm a human that has gone through breakups and a divorce. And then there are other people that are like, I don't want to know anything about my therapist. And I'm like, that's great. And I'm not the person for you. And like, that's okay too. And so something that I've had to unlearn is kind of this pressure and even a little bit of shame that other therapists have put on me or have talked about around me of like, this isn't what therapists do. We don't share about our own struggles. And to me, that just perpetuates more shame in other people because there's this facade of like, I have all my shit together and, nothing bad happens to me. Or if it does, I'm like some Yoda that can just like,
navigate super easily and fast and basically hover right out of it.
Right. And it's like, no, when I broke my foot, I like freaked out and was like yelling at my partners one day. Like, I don't teach that. I don't encourage people to yell at the people that they love. But like, there I was, just being kind of nuts for a minute. And like, that's okay. Cause again, we're human. So it's been an interesting journey. And I think that kind of where I try to draw my own line is this share of service to someone. And what I have figured out is that the majority of things are, and there are a few things that just simply aren't. And so one of the kind of personal boundaries that I have set, or limits that I've set for myself, is I don't talk about my own sexual preferences or any sort of like power dynamics or anything like that publicly. If we run into each other at a party in New York, then like we're both at the party, like that we're both there.
Yep.
But that's not something that is of service to other people, at least that I have found yet.
Yeah. You're not flighting that, you're not centering it, and that's not where you're spending your energy. And the thing is, I have met other people where that's exactly what they're centering for their own reasons. So I'm hearing you taking really seriously the fact that you know how you want to be of service.
Yes, exactly. And to me, it is so much more profound to share that I'm a mental health professional that has mental illness, and that I'm a relationship professional that has gone through a breakup and divorce, and that I am a relationship therapist that teaches communication that sometimes doesn't show up the way that I want to. All of those types of things I have found to be more of service to at least the people who have been in my sphere till this point.
Well, I love that. And I've shared in my story that one of the sources of shame in my life has been all the things that didn't get talked about when I was a kid. And basically all of them ended up being connected to shame somehow, because well, nobody's talking about this, but I'm thinking about it, so there must be something wrong with me.
Yes.
And when I go to talk to somebody, whether it's a professional or not, and I share something that I feel is imperfect in me, and they're like, well, I've got none of that. Wow. I'm like, oh no.
Exactly.
So, of course I want to know that the people that I'm relying on are human and can talk to me from that place. So
yes.
I love that.
Thank you. I mean, in my non-monogamy, like 101 part 1, like the fundamental, this workshop that I teach, the first 15 minutes is me reading excerpts from my diary in high school.
Wow.
About, and I of course didn't have the language of non-monogamy. I didn't have all of the language that I do now, but you can read these entries and it's like, there's hearts on the eyes. Like you can see that it's like this young person writing it. And it's like, I don't understand why I have to break up with this person if I want to go make out with this person. And like, oh, now I accidentally cheated because I thought that I, had to end it and I didn't want to. Like, it's this grappling with this concept. And I share it because of exactly what you just said, which is like, I want people to be able to learn that some of us experience a lot of things from a very young age. And because we don't talk about it, some of these entries are like, what's wrong with me? Yeah. Why can all of my friends be in these, what I was calling like committed relationships? And I can't, and like, I must be a slut. And of course, not in a positive, fun way, in a derogatory way. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's just such power in being like, hey, let's talk about it so that we don't internalize this shame from such a young age.
I can't even imagine how different my experience of my teenage years would have been had I had that experience, except I have a house full of teenagers who now have been raised, they're 16 to 23 now, and they were raised with this as a normal fact of life. And I still notice how, because the larger culture is still holding monogamy as the standard, the gold standard, the norm, the water they swim in, we're still dealing with the fact that like they normalize that. And so they have to recenter themselves every time somebody shames them about their parents being polyamorous. It's not even, that's not even their personal stuff. And yeah, so it's like the layers of shame we can peel back off are both individual and collective, the way that we can talk about this differently and say, because sometimes I'll say to my friends who are my age and who have kids, like, remember, when you accidentally promote monogamy, you know, you might not want to throw us under the bus. And that just hearing that and having some of my friends say, oh, I didn't even realize that I was putting relationships into a hierarchy that placed monogamy as this perfection and the ideal. And I didn't realize what that would mean for these real live people who I care about and I love and who I know do relationships differently from me, but they're still not like they're not grappling with it the way we're talking about.
Exactly.
It is such an interesting social experiment. So as you described, our kids have been raised in an environment with a non-traditional relationship structures.
Yeah.
Done a bunch of
traditional,
stuff.
just not pretty white cis hetero patriarchal.
Traditional, yeah, that's the wrong word, right?
Just
and
not now.
But there they are, like you said, they've been like reoriented by the culture.
Yeah, constant, like it's a
movies,
constant.
stories, you know, books, TV, video games, like everything. There's so much out there that promotes the idea of monogamy as the ideal.
Yeah. I mean, even reality TV.
Right.
Like,
oh, jeepers. Yeah.
I talk about this with The Bachelor all the time. I you know, I've watched that franchise for years. I mean, it's been on almost my entire life. What? I
didn't know you self-harmed that way.
I know, right? Yeah. It's really, it's like, it's one of these, that could be a whole podcast
episode all by itself.
Yeah.
The shows that we watch that harm us.
Truly. And I find that show in particular really fascinating because every season, the lead is baffled at the fact that they fall in love with more than one person.
Yes.
And yet the goal, or like winning, and for anyone who can't see me, I'm using big air quotes, that show is to pick one.
Yeah.
And it's like during this process, all of these people, especially the contestants, are saying things like, you know, it's really hard to watch this person that I'm dating, like, go out with someone else, but like, I'm adjusting. And like, we're watching them like learn how to cope through discomfort and jealousy and all of these things. And that's actually like quite beautiful.
Yeah.
But yet at the end, they're like, and now pick one. And I'm just waiting for like one season, them to be like, what if it was an and?
Yeah, like what if I just don't pick and we do something different?
Yeah, okay, we've gotten to this point. You know, we're just gonna stop. Good luck, y'all.
Yeah. And like, I've narrowed it down to these two or these three. And, you know, they always say, like, I get something different. I feel differently in each of these relationships. And again, like these really beautiful kind of lessons that could be taken. And yet they're like, well, I have to sacrifice this thing to then center monogamy. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah. And I think that so I'm often working with people. Well, we are. So Ken and I have groups that we're leading right now. And if they're my groups and Ken's been in them and now he's in them long enough that I watch us participating. We're noticing how many people they're really struggling with the layers of, well, okay, I feel how my heart has opened to multiplicity. I feel how my body wants to enjoy multiplicity. Often that's the first entry, but then the social piece. So frequently we're seeing people, I see people in my groups, but I also see people I'm dating like right now who are like, oh yeah, but socially we are 100% monogamous and we are going to keep it that way. And they're very protective. And I will honor that. Absolutely. I want to honor the fact that that's your choice and recognize why do we do that? And what are we collectively doing with each other that is, again, like prioritizing, centering, and privileging this monogamous structure. I mean, the state privileges it with tax codes. And then we also privilege it ourselves when we imagine that the people around us won't or can't deal with it or understand it. But then now we're talking about, I can think of literally hundreds of people I know who are in that spot where they're like, yeah, but socially we're going to maintain monogamy. I'm like, but you're
Yeah.
not monogamous. And they're like,
Right.
yes, I'm not. But socially. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I hear you. And I will be with that pain. I interpret it as pain. This like being torn with like, I want to present one way because it feels safe. And also my heart, my body, my mind want this other thing.
Yeah. And I love what you said about honoring it too, and understanding the why behind it, because I do think that there are some places in the world, in our country, some careers that like it is unsafe, like more objectively than perception, unsafe to be out in whatever way out means to you. And, I've been seeing someone for almost a year and a half now. And this person is married and has been with, their partner for a very long time. And the world that they work in isn't super accepting of non-monogamy. And so there are agreements that they have that, of course, I respect and, follow and have consented to. But like if we're in certain neighborhoods in the city, we have to present as two friends out to dinner. There's no, canoodling. There's no kissing.
I'm in that same position.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I'm in the exact same position right now with somebody I care about a lot. And I'm like, it's fine. And there's tension there around like,
Yeah.
It's like comes at a cost for me as well.
Yep.
And it's a cost I've accepted and I embrace.
Yep.
And yeah.
Exactly. And I know totally. And I know for me, like understanding the why and understanding that it's a very conscious choice on their part. It's not just, this like kind of unprocessed shame of we just don't want to even go there, or we don't want any of our friends to know. As people find out, they don't deny it to anyone, but they're also not willing to kind of make this like public display. And so for me, that's given my heart more peace, even in those moments of, oh, this sucks. I want to kiss you. Like we were out to dinner and I know you and we've been dating for this long and I want to be able to just be. And I've worked so hard in my life to be able to just be. And again, like understanding that not everybody has that privilege, has that ability and can do that. And knowing the why behind it is so helpful, because I would never prioritize my own desire to give someone a kiss at dinner over someone's career.
Right. Or their even their felt sense of safety. And that's where I find I'm usually wrestling is they're still in their, what I think of as their experimental phase. They're still figuring out what this is for them. That can last years. I think a lot of times people imagine it will last for a few weeks or maybe a few months. And I'm like, my programs start at a year long for a reason, because that's the minimum I see people make that transition. And often it's 6, 7, 8 years before somebody totally understands who they are, having shed the monogamous enculturation and having actively chosen how they want to be in their world. And in the meantime, dealing with the fact that, we wind up with, it doesn't even just have to be work. I mean, what if you have in-laws who are going to like shame your children, or like I'm a million ways. I mean, I am a cautionary tale myself. My first husband sued for custody of my kids. When I originally came out and joined in a triadic configuration, and it didn't work. Everything worked out, but like that was the fear. So I take it super seriously. I understand how like it brings you to your knees in fear. It's not small either.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to make it about us, right? Like on the other side of it, like, oh, they don't want to be seen with me, or they're ashamed of me. And it can be very easy to go to that place because we are so ego driven in our own selves. And so I think it's so important to take a step back and have that empathy and understanding for somebody else's experience.
Right. Rachel, it's making me think, there's another topic that's been on my mind a ton, and it's coming up with lots of my clients. And I think that you have enormous amounts of experience with this topic. So I'm curious what you think about this. I have called this particular skill set hinge skills. I know it's called different stuff across different platforms, but when we're talking about someone, both of us are in this position, we're in committed relationships and we're also dating. And, so that puts us in that hinge position. And I am seeing an immense amount of struggle. And oftentimes the struggle it feels like a huge challenge because there are these huge differences. And I think we're talking about that when we're saying like, well, one person may not feel safe because of work, and another person might feel like it's safer to be out, and another person might feel like they're still experimenting. And we have all these differences. And then we have the hinge point, the person who is relating to these multiple people. And I'm just noticing immense amounts of challenge and pain in really working with ourselves. I don't even have a question so much as I really wanted to talk about hinging with you, because I know that you've been through it for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that bring up for you?
The first thing I thought of when you said that is our brain and our society wants us so badly to think in black and white terms. And so badly to think in or terms versus and terms. And I think that being in that position can create so many ands.
Yep.
That depending on where we are in our journey, in our capacity to hold all of those things at once, and some of them being supportive of each other and others being quite contradictory or opposite, our ability to hold that can really impact our anxiety, our capacity to show up through it, and even be able to name it, and say, I'm feeling this, and I'm this to this person, and I'm this to that person. And that means I'm also this to that person, like all of the different ands, and both logistically and emotionally. And I think that that's a hard concept for people. I mean, I don't think that. I know that. I know that it's a hard concept. And, it's even hard when it's something as quote unquote simple as like feeling happy and sad.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just as simple as that. Like it kind of breaks our brains, and it literally causes some neurological dissonance. And then we get into the actual metaphor of it, and we don't have great stories about what it is to be not monolithic. Not like you're supposed to present as one thing. You're supposed to have a handle on things. And if you do, then you'll have a defined, clear answer. And I don't think that there's anybody in the hinge position in any relating that isn't experiencing both dissonance and desire to say the yes and there are mutual exclusivities. If I have one partner who is insisting on parallel connection and another partner who genuinely does not want that and is feeling like that is actively detrimental to them, and they would like to know their metamor so they feel that sense of safety of like, I know who this person is. I know they put their pants on one leg at a time. Like, okay, we're real people. Now what do I do? Like literally. And so I get this question, I think, oh, it's so complicated because those aren't even the two factors. There's also, do I as the hinge, do I even know what I want? Or do I find myself pulled? And so when I'm with the person who wants parallel, I feel like I want more parallel. When I'm with the person who wants kitchen table or garden party, do I feel like I want more of that? And I'm losing my own sense of connection to self because I'm pulled by their
This is so funny because she's talking about me.
I'm not talking about you. I am also talking about 17
You're not
other
only
people
talking about me. but you
He's
are
like, no, it is all, that
me.
is all about me.
Yeah.
That one's me. That was me.
We got to do it. Well, we actually lived all together. So 3 of us lived together, and his wife at the time wanted parallel, but we lived together. That's that's turning the level up to 11. Like,
that's really hard.
Intense. It was so intense. I had no idea like life could be that hard, but I don't think that's what most people are. Most people are struggling with more. There is a division. There's a sort of natural division of like where you see these people, who you live with, and how do you ground into what you actually want in that?
Yeah. And I know that in that experience and other experiences I've had, the struggle was to remain all of me in all of the contexts, all of me with you, all of me with her. But I didn't. I really just didn't. And I filtered. And so you got what I thought you wanted, and she got what I thought she wanted. And some of it was literally a filter on who I was. And then some of it was manufactured.
Right.
Like not just, it was a facade, a built
personality.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been learning everything I can about not living that way. We started off this episode talking about your presence as a whole person across all of the places that you present yourself. And I do have a question, which is, how does that go for you in your multiple relationships?
Mixed. Man, there are so many ways to answer this. So I think that one of the really interesting things are the assumptions that some people have coming into meeting me. Because there's this weird kind of parasocial thing that happens where, because I'm so open and honest and do show up as, as much as my full self as I possibly can through a social platform, people assume that they know me. And the truth is that they do, to a certain extent, right? Like, I'm not BSing things online, and I'm not using filters every time I post. Like, they do know me. They do know what I look like. They know so much about me, but they don't know me in relationship. And they don't know me when I had too much to drink on accident. They don't know me when I am a week out from my period. They don't, right? Like, they don't know all of these different types of things. And so I think that some people can have unconscious assumptions about me that I either live up to or don't. And that can feel challenging and sad sometimes. The other interesting piece is that some people will make the assumption that I am public about all of the people that I'm dating.
Yes.
So I have heard things like, I'll match with someone on Field and they'll say, oh, I follow you on Instagram. I would love to take you out, but I am not interested in being on your Instagram. Right. So therefore I don't want to go out. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, what? Like, so many assumptions here. And what? Like, a conversation, we could have a conversation about it.
Plus, you're not posting things, like, you're not including people in your public life who you have not gotten consent from. But that brings up the fact that most people have not recognized how deeply we've had to center consent in our lives. And they haven't had to do that often, especially like the longer you've been monogamous, the less you've had to practice explicit, and you start relying on all that implicit. I know how they would kind of feel about this. So they just don't have the practice you have.
Yeah.
But that also, like, buzzkill for the dating life.
Yeah. I'm like, ugh. And, the other way that shows up is, like, I've had the experience of people approaching me in social situations, and the way that they are coming up to me is, and I say this with zero ego and only objectivity, because I don't understand it, but they come up to me like I am freaking Beyonce. And they're like, oh my God, like they're like nervous and excited. And I don't see myself that way at all. I'm like, I am literally a human being who happens to be a therapist, who happens to be an educator, who like teaches stuff online. That's it. Like,
but to change people's lives.
Yeah, like that's
words.
it. Like I'm not trying to like be famous here. So like when I'm approached in this way of like coyness and almost like an inherent power differential.
Yep.
I struggle with that because I don't want that in my relationships. And so I struggle to name that with someone without sounding egotistical, without you know, wanting to call them out. Like who am I to say like don't be shy, like what, you know, don't be excited. Like of course I want them to feel whatever they're feeling, but it's a very hard position for me because I don't want someone to want to date me because they want to pick my brain, and I don't want someone to want to date me because they think that I'm some like social media influencer. Like that's not
the move. That's not
yeah. And those are not reasons why I want to be in relationship with someone. And so it's interesting because you put all of those things together and it's like you have someone who may think that they know all of me, who feels shy and a little bit intimidated, and also is like afraid that I'm going to like put them on my Instagram story the first time we get coffee.
Right.
And like that creates a little bit of a barrier. And so I've had to add, like on all of my dating profiles, it says, if we have either met before or you know me from Instagram, please tell me when you first write me.
Just let me know. Heads up.
Like,
heads up.
Because too many times it came out like too far into conversation and I felt deceived. Because I'm talking to someone that I don't know, and I don't even have their Instagram handle or their phone number.
Yeah, their life is opaque. I definitely feel that. I'm like, I don't know. Like there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of my deep conversation. Like I bear all, especially on this podcast. I say everything, and it's just sitting there. And so it's a one-way mirror effect that. Yeah, I just want to know. It doesn't mean that I won't interact. I just want to know so that I can be like, oh, how does this influence the power that already exists in our relationship? Because we're all in power relationships all the time. That's just
exactly.
We're like
exactly. And then it's not odd if they say something like, you know, oh, how are things going with your breakup?
Right. Right. Or
like if they right. Like if they've already named that, then it's like, oh, thank you so much for asking. And like, it doesn't feel weird. But if they say that 3 days in a conversation and it wasn't named that they know me outside of field, I'm like, that was not in my field profile.
Right.
So where'd we learn that info? Like what's going on? So yeah, so that has made it harder, but there's definitely some benefit to it. Which is like, there are some things about myself that I think some people aren't interested in, you know? And so if someone doesn't want to be with a big kid who loves theater and like, you know, is non-monogamous and like talks about their depression online, then like, cool, we know that right out the gate and we don't have to perhaps wait a month to figure those things out. So it's definitely two sides to the coin for sure.
Like having a really transparent like personality does also, it invites a depth of connection faster than it might otherwise. And I think like just to circle back to hinging, like that is one of the things that I see people struggle with the most. Like one person values privacy as a safety mechanism. The other person values transparency as a safety mechanism. And so by like removing any value judgments about whether, or as much as we can as humans, removing the value judgment about which is better. Yeah. Now you've got these two different ways of being in the world. Or Jake Ernst would talk about like routes to safety, right? Like you're going to use your route to safety differently Okay, so what do we do as the hinge? How do I navigate these extraordinarily different ways of finding safety in the world?
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I've dealt with that. My partner Ashley is far more of a private person than I am,
Mhm.
just in general. And exactly what you're saying, she finds safety in that privacy. I had a bit of a traumatic event as a younger person where a bunch of my very deep, darkest thoughts became known to people that were not supposed to know about
Mhm.
them. And so one of the ways that I have healed from that is finding safety in sharing. And I'm not going to have someone come just find it out and then share with the world. I'll share it with the world.
Me
And
too.
so, right,
Very,
so
very different from somebody who's
yeah,
privacy and feels really genuinely fed by that.
yes, yes. And so figuring that out over the course of our relationship has been a beautiful process. And I feel very grateful that, you know, she and I both have been able to find agreements and compromises and middle grounds. And, you know, I have gotten a little bit more pulled back on sharing certain things when it comes to her specifically. She's become more comfortable sharing more things about herself, and we've both grown in that way. But I do think that a lot of people will show up to relationship feeling very stuck in whatever that is. And it's like, I will not budge from this at all.
Well, that's why I use the word safety, because I think I hear people in my practice use that word, and once they've attached it to the idea, this is how I find safety, they often get kind of fixed in like, so I get to have it, I have to have it, and I will not compromise, I will not adapt.
Yeah.
And that to me is it's such a magnificent way to block ourselves from growth in relationship. Like from
Yeah,
being
that's
changed by relating to multiple people in particular. Like if I have a metamor who really loves privacy, and I have had this before, then I really have to wrestle with my stuff. And that's deep work for me.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily have to love their way of being, but if I'm willing to look at, so why am I showing up so transparently? Like, why am I almost to the point of being like showy? Why am I out there? What is that? What is that feeding in me? Like, what can that teach me about myself? But I'm seeing people like lock into that idea of, but this is how I stay safe, and so I get to stay safe all the time.
and something that I haven't talked about at all is okay, yep, this is my route to safety. Do you want to learn another one? Might be good to have multiple,
Right.
and then and that they can change over time because I think mine have.
Yeah, you use
Mm,
privacy for almost
Privacy
everything.
was it felt like a
Bordering on
it's
secrecy.
yep, and
mm,
when we'll be talking in a podcast and it'll be over and you'll be like, oh, I'm so happy you shared that. I'm like, that was because it felt good. That wasn't like a stretch. That was ah,
yeah.
Right.
didn't used to feel like that. Now it does. So these things
Yeah.
we change.
So patience
Right.
too. Patience with the fact that that's taken years
Yep.
Hmm.
to shift that.
Yeah.
Hmm. And, you know, something that like I think can be really helpful when looking at this stuff is like, okay, this behavior has helped me feel safe in the past.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's the most effective behavior for
Uh-huh.
what I want outside of that safety or
Mhm.
perceived safety?
Okay,
And
everybody can pause and go back and listen to that sentence again. Because seriously, so what I heard you say is this behavior created safety for me in the past. I found safety in it.
Mhm.
And is this behavior going to continue to support my growth, my safety as I move forward, especially if I'm making new decisions, if I want to shift my relational paradigm, perhaps, if I want,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Like anxiety may tell us that we will be more safe if we stay at home under our covers. And that may be the right decision some of the times.
yep,
But is that the most effective decision every single time for the bigger picture of the life that we want? Probably not.
yeah,
And so sometimes we do have to make choices that feel counter to that safety because that safety is coming from this neural pathway that has just been driven on so many times that it's like, this is my way to safety. And, if we drive the same way to work every day, and it's like, why would I change that? I know how to get there. And it's like, well, there's this beautiful garden that you might drive by if you take the other highway, and you could see a flower you've never seen before, or you may see a new restaurant opening that you then go eat at. Like it can be hard to choose the other thing. And I'm certainly not saying that in every situation we need to, but looking at it and asking, like, could I do this differently one time? What would happen? How would that feel? And almost using it as like an experiment with ourselves of like, okay, my safety brain is telling me to do this. This one time, I'm going to pick this opposite thing. Yeah. And I want to see how it goes. And if I hate it, never have to do it again.
Right. There's then the reality that if I hate it, I mean, I'm a Jungian, I can't help it. Like, I now have so much that I could dive into, like, why? Like, what is it reminding me of? What's it bringing up? Like, what is this thing that I have so decided to push away? Because, right, like, whatever you got there, there's shadow material. It's currently, it has been invisible and in the unconscious so long, but you just made it visible. So whatever you learned, right, like there's some juicy little morsel in there that could be worked, which doesn't mean you have to keep doing the thing. I'm thinking about, an example of, do I want to even meet my metamors? Do I just want to even meet them? And simply trying once and saying, okay, I hated it. Okay, well, I mean, we could get into a whole bunch of stuff about what did you hate about it? What was the scenario? Was like, did you pick a place where you felt safe? Did you choose a time when you felt well regulated? Did you choose a time when you were super PMSing? Like what? Right. The practical stuff. Yep. And when you met that metamor, what's up? Is your relationship feeling relatively secure right now? Is it not? Did you feel like you were put on the spot? Did you feel like you were able to show up as your full self, or did you actually go and still hide the whole time? Because I see that happen quite a lot. I showed up, but I either hid behind a persona, like somebody I thought they needed to see, or I just showed up and I was actually silent. I was at the party, but I never really interacted. And so I stayed in that anxiety brain the whole time, and I just sort of white knuckled it through. But none of these things tell me the totality of what it will be to meet different metamors over different time periods.
Right.
And so, like, cataloging, like, you did some data collection, but you did some data collection in one small experiment and seeing what else you could tweak and what you could get out of it.
Yeah. Routes to Safety is filled with the potential to learn stuff. You mentioned, like, so you drive over that same pathway and that feels safe. Okay, great. What if you move?
Right.
It's not the path to safety anymore. The context just changed. Right. And that route to safety was built when the context was a certain thing. Route to safety used to be crawl to mom.
Right.
I can guarantee you that's not going to work for me anymore. I had to learn new routes because everything changed. Yeah. And when little things change, they can be really important little things that all of a sudden make things different. Go meet a metamor. I didn't like that. Okay. But there are so many things that could change for next time. And the other thing is, I didn't like that. And now I feel safer. Oh, crap. I didn't like that route to safety, but it worked. Oh,
yeah.
Darn.
Right.
Such a good point. And to continue on your analogy of like, what if you move, is when we're constantly only using the same routes to safety, if those go away for whatever reason, we're then in a panic. Like there's no other. And so we have to, and I don't use that term very often, but like we truly have to have this like bigger toolkit of things that can help us feel safe. And it can't just be things that I avoid and like things that I don't do. Like it's because again, is that effective to the life that you want to have? And like, is that an effective choice towards the life that you want to have? And where did you learn this idea that like the route to safety is avoidance of things that could create discomfort. And
Right.
is discomfort the same as safety? Like there's just so much to unpack there.
There's tons. I'm thinking right now too about people who are in the position of being like, they're the reluctant partner. They're maybe opening and they're still in their first few months or few years even, but they're reluctant and yet they've bought in, like they've decided that they're in, and yet there's often not the same motivating factor, right? To stretch into, okay, I need more tools. I need to figure this out. I noticed that a lot of people wind up told by, I think, very well-meaning counselors and therapists, well, you're in survival mode, so you know, this is just going to be really hard, and just focus on staying safe. And I have to push back on that. I like, yes, in the super immediate sense, there is a survival. But when we're talking about people who are into their months and years, I'm really stressed by the idea that somebody is trying to hold still and grit and bear it, or the idea that relying on some sort of external sense of safety versus, say, asking for really specific co-regulation practices to be baked, like get freshly folded into the mix of my relationships. Like maybe we didn't have co-regulation, maybe we didn't have intentional dating, maybe we never had clear, explicit relationship agreements, maybe we never even really had to come home at a specific time, like maybe we never had to communicate about when we were going to be anywhere. And all of those things could now be on the table in order to create safety. And so when I hear people being told, like, well, you're in survival, so just like, you know, just stay safe.
No, yeah, I push back on that too. I that, and like even an even worse one that I will hear is like, are you sure that it's for you? Like, is that your intuition telling you that this isn't the right choice for you? And I have this conversation with people a lot, both personally and professionally, of like, is it your intuition? Is it societal programming? Is it past trauma? Because like all of these are gonna yeah, exactly.
I mean, literally, your therapist sitting in a room asking you week after week.
Right.
Sure, this is the right choice for you.
Their biases and whatnot.
So and I'm happy to call in everybody. Like, I have a clinical degree too. I do not practice as a licensed professional, but like, we were not trained to do this unless we sought out specific training. And then we still have to unpack our personal stuff. Me too. Still have to unpack our personal stuff. And so we could be the voice in their ear.
Yeah.
Asking them that question. So societal conditioning, parental conditioning as when we were children, and the actual help that we're seeking can reinforce this idea. And now we have another niggling idea that it might just not be for us.
Yeah. And especially when someone who we perceive as like knowing better in some cases, which let me just like clear that up. No therapist knows better.
No, we're just people.
Just people. Like if your therapist is giving you vibes of like, I know better than you about you, like fuck off. Right. No, like absolutely not. But yeah, it's reinforced over and over again. And so many of us have trauma, and like that pops up, and it's like, well, of course I feel safer when the things that are surrounding my trauma aren't being touched. Like, obviously.
And healing trauma is a thing, an actual thing.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
That gets me. I mean, I think I talk about this so much, but I often have clients mention that they've never heard it. So I think it's something that bears repeating, is like, my trauma healing is largely through my non-monogamy, like through it, like as the impetus. It's not that being non-monogamous has done a damn thing to heal anything. It's that putting myself into this paradigm shift and then showing up to do the work week after week, day after day, has introduced so many opportunities to recognize where I was gritting my teeth and just bearing my trauma, but where I also was playing out my trauma patterns in relationships over and over and over again, under the guise of, I'm just anxiously attached and never making any movement on that because it's just my label. And now I've identified with my label and nothing happens. So
Totally.
I take a Finding Nemo approach to that. I'm like, well, if nothing ever happens to you, nothing will ever happen to you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and, you know, I mean, it's not pain-free. It's not, but at the same time, like, I don't want to skip out on being alive and actually achieving my healing. If that's something that could be achieved, like doing the things that will move me in that direction.
There's talking about routes to safety, and there's a thing that I heard somewhere. A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships are for. Safety is good to have a place to go, but living there, it's not what I want. That's not what I'm for. And so that means that I have to step out, and the healing is there too, because the safety is important for healing, but there's not a lot of movement when you're safe. So, and healing is movement, so it can be hard to make big gains in that very safe spot.
And this is where we could talk about like having somatic practices to be able to come home to yourself, having co-regulation practices to come back to your partners, and being able to resource, being well-resourced, being held in community, all of those things. So okay, so Rachel, I could literally talk to you for the rest of time, and that would be just fine.
Yeah, apparently there's no end to this, nor would I want there to be.
Instead, though, I think you should tell everyone where they can follow you and find you for more, because everybody's going to want to if they aren't already.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. I could talk forever to both of you. My Instagram is the Wright_Rachel, Wright with a W, Rachel. My website is rachelwrightnyc.com. And my podcast is the Wright Conversations.
I love the Wright Conversations. I have enjoyed it so much. So I hope that everybody pops over to listen. There are some amazing, amazing conversations happening there. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, so wonderful. So wonderful.
There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliequiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com. And find out if you're ready to open up happily, and what to do if you are or if you're not.